In this video, I'm going to talk about how to draw a graph in Hilltop Manager, how to zoom in on a graph and pan across it. I'll talk about adding threshold lines to a graph, and then talk specifically about water quality data. In Manager, you can also draw a set of data over the top of a previous graph as an overplot, and I talk about how to do this, as well as configuring and printing graphs in the next video. To generate a graph in Hilltop Manager, you simply click on the measurement of interest in the tree control, and Manager will draw a graph of all the available data. Let's have a look at flow data for Alphabet River at Crossword. You can see there is data from 1956 to 1996, but I'm interested in what happened at the end of 1994. So to zoom the graph for a quick view, you move the cursor to the area of interest on the graph, press and hold the left mouse button, drag the mouse to produce a rectangle showing the area to be zoomed, release the left mouse button and the new graph will be drawn. To zoom in closer, simply repeat the process. And again. Manager remembers the range of the last 20 graphs you did for a site, and you can move through the graphs you've drawn. If I press Page Up, I move back to the previous graph. Press Page Up again to move back to the graph before that. Page Down takes me forward one graph. To see the first graph you drew for a site, press Home, and pressing End takes me to the last graph I zoomed into. You can also pan using the arrow keys to the left, to the right, up and down. Be aware that panning is not considered a zoom, so page up, page down, home and end don't move through the pans. If I press page up now, I don't move to the last pan, but back to the previous zoom. The method I have just described is an easy way to view data quickly. You can also use precise axis control to zoom a graph for a more detailed view. You do this by moving the cursor to either the left or the lower axis. The pointer changes to a hand and you left click to bring up this dialog box. Here you can change the vertical range of the graph. The numbers here currently are a range computed by Manager from the data. Because we're looking at flow, there is no reason for negative numbers, so I'm going to change the minimum to 0. You can change the time interval and scale by entering a number followed by its units here, for example 1 year. I'm going to use an interval of 0 though, so Hilltop Manager will draw the data cumulatively. You can change the time range of the graph, and I'm going to look at data from midnight on the 1st of November 1994 to the 31st of December 1994. From this dialog, you can also control how much the graph will move when you press an arrow key to pan. You can click Restore to set the graph back to the range of the graph when you first drew it, Cancel to exit without making changes, or OK to apply changes. You can also adjust the time range by clicking on this toolbar button. You can select all data, select a range by entering dates and times into these boxes, or enter a time range for recent data, which can be useful to check if a telemetry system is operating correctly. Hilltop Manager can draw threshold lines on the graph to show when a measurement is outside normal conditions. These are available under the View menu, and there are a set of toolbar buttons here. I'm adding threshold lines to my graph, and you can see that low flow and minimum flow thresholds have been applied to the graph. This button shows data limits on the graph. You can also draw the graph using a preset range. I click on Preset Range, redraw the graph, and here's my graph set at 0 to 1000 cubic meters per second. Factors such as observer and analysis method are stored with the data in the case of water quality measurements. If I move the cursor to a measurement of interest, the pointer will change to a hand. Right-click to bring up a dialog box with these options. View the measurement in a dialog box lets you see the water quality data laid out like a spreadsheet with fields for the actual data for the measurement and the sample parameters collected with the measurement. You can view the measurement or the sample in a web page, and this is a handy reporting function. It's done by passing the data through a style sheet, so you'll need to browse for your style sheet and then click OK. Once you've selected one of the view options, you can return to the graph, in this case by pressing Escape. Then left-click on any measurement to automatically generate your chosen view. The style sheet allows you to have the data laid out any way you choose, and you can modify a style sheet by editing it in Notepad. In a style sheet, the XML data is converted to HTML. You can choose to export your data as XML to see what it contains. You select the XML file that you want to write to and choose whether you want to add a style sheet. And lastly, you can also access the measurement editor from the dialog box.